that we are fortunate to have two of the best people that we could possibly have on this webinar, two of my favorite people. I've learned so much in the last 10 years, and I would not be doing what I'd be doing today if I had not run into Johnny at some point and if I had not run into Lariel. This webinar is going to be as good as it is because of Johnny and Lariel. So Johnny, he's the author of the Superpower Quest, super adept at zeroing in on the thing that we are individually really good at. We're going to talk about the thing that we're all actually pretty good at. We're going to do it in our different way, but he wrote a book called The Superpower Quest, and he's going to be talking to my team about helping find that thing that they're really good at. Because when you find out what you're good at and it's aligned with your purpose, everything becomes effortless. It all becomes much easier. Next, Lariel Lipkins, my favorite sales trainer of all time. Lariel's the one. You've heard me mention her name before that taught me the importance of taking someone from where they are today to where they want to be. It sounds so simple. I had her training my team. She trained Broad Street's team. And when she said that to me, I didn't think I had anything to learn. I thought she was just training the team. I nearly fell out of my chair. It was so simple, but it rang so hard. And I started to see it everywhere. And it has flipped sales upside down for a lot of people. So thank you for joining us, Johnny and Lariel. All right, so I'm going to make a promise to everybody. It's important, right? Whether you're just getting started out, because somebody reached out and they said, I feel like Kenny's webinars, they're oriented toward bigger publishers, right? No matter where you are on the spectrum of ad sales, you have never sold anything before. You're a reporter. And the idea of selling just seems totally foreign to you. Like, absolutely, that's not me. I'm not a schmoozer. I remember someone said that before. Whether you've got a few sales under your belt, whether you're kind of like an average closer, whether you are a closer, where you're really good at this, the way I thought when I was talking to Lariel, you are going to take something away from this, something incredibly important. At the root of this presentation, at the root of this webinar is a gem that you have to hold on to. So that's my promise to you. You're going to find a gem. So a little bit about myself. My name is Kenny Cashcrow. I am best known as the creator of Broad Street. Broad Street is an alternative to Google Ad Manager. You can think of Broad Street as kind of like if Google Ad Manager and Canva, got together, something came out of that. Right? Kind of combination of those two. I've got one goal in this whole Broad Street thing. I want to make sure that local businesses and small businesses are spending money with my publishers instead of Google and Facebook. I think they're doing just fine. And I want to make sure that local money stays local and it serves our publishers, regardless of what you're doing. I say local, but it also means in our industry for those B2B publishers. I'm the publisher at Red Bank Green, a hyperlocal news outlet that's been around since 2006, the beating heart of Red Bank, New Jersey, a true gem that I had the opportunity to carry the torch for a couple of years ago. Formerly an engineer at Yahoo and Mozilla, I worked on their ad tech stack. That's how I got into this crazy world. I was just telling a guy yesterday that I have no idea how I got into this world of ad sales, how I'm the one running the webinar with over 1,000 people registered, talk about ad sales. But it's a crazy journey and some people that helped me get there. I'm from Red Bank. I'm the dad to two boys, Kenny and Will, Ken and Will, and the husband to Katie. Some of you may remember Katie as the person who sold you your Broad Street account way back in the day. So I'm going to hand it over to Lariel.
Hey. It is such a pleasure to be here. And quite frankly, an honor. Drop kudos in the chat for Kenny, just for organizing this. I know when he reached out to me a month ago, I was like, I'm in. I don't know what I'm in for, but I'm in, right? So I'm super, super excited. Kenny, like you have done an amazing job. Your goal was 500. Over 1,000. Great job. And I'm honored to be able to see Kenny in this light because he is a client, but he has become a friend, and honored that you invited me. So I'm the CEO of Lipkins Consulting Group. We teach salespeople how to sell, teach you how to close more business, make more money. We build sales processes, training, consulting, all the things. I've trained over 10,000 salespeople over the last 15 years. I'm the author of a book called What Top Performing Salespeople Do Different, where I really break down 10 things that excellent, high-performing salespeople do, regardless of industry, regardless of experience, and regardless of what's happening in the economy, they can still close business. right? And I am mom to three amazing boys. I've got an 8-year-old, 5-year-old, 1-year-old, and we are done. Closed up shop. So super excited to be here. And I know we've got a lot to cover in the next hour.
All right, cool. Thank you for that, Lariel. So let's get it started. By the way, if you have questions, hold them. We have a dedicated section for Q&A. Usually we save Q&A for the very end and then like we run out of time. So we got 10 minutes dedicated to Q&A at about the 40-minute mark. All right, see if we can get there on time. I want to run this all like clockwork. So the sale, it can start like this. Right, so we get an inbound sale. Hello, we are interested in advertising. Can you please send information? We have somebody who sends that to us. It's from Karen. There's a real one from last year. Talked to her. She eventually came on board, right? Or it can be a little more descriptive like this one. This one's a little more recent. Colony House, recent apartment complex. I got a renovation done. Pretty descriptive. They actually kind of suggested what they might be interested in. And here's another one. We got a lead gen form running on Red Bank Green that says, I was at an ice cream place and they were giving us free samples. I said, why don't I do free samples for Red Bank Green? So I put a lead gen form in there, and then sure enough, I started getting leads once every week or two, which is then it became inbound. Then we got this one. This is the famous one. So if you were on this version of the webinar last year, you remember Joe Bagel. Hello, I'm interested in your advertising rates. Thank you. He didn't even ask for them. He just said he was interested in them. My name is Joseph. It's for Bagel Station on Mama Street. So like the sentence, it's a little out of order, but I got the point, right? So I just want to ask everybody in the chat. You've been to a brochure training before. You might have an idea what to do next. What do we do next? What are our next steps? We get an email like this. What would you do? Send the media kit. We got to pick up the phone. What would you do, Ariel?
Pick up the phone, call, do a little bit of research, right? But we want to start a conversation.
Research the business, stop on by. Annette, the wonderful and amazing Annette Batson, she used to just do a drop-in. Schedule a call, research. All right. So we're going to talk about what to do here, but generally don't do the thing that they ask you to do. Don't just send them the media kit, right? We're going to talk about why that's the case. But before I do that, I want to tell you guys something that happened when I was promoting this webinar. This is a true story. I was out in the parking lot. Tommy was filming it. We got our team on the couch right here. Tommy was filming it. I'm out there trying to hit a kickflip because I think if I do a kickflip, then that's going to be good material to market the webinar, which I did eventually hit. But this guy comes by, he says, hey, don't hit my car. Well, I get to talking to him, and it turns out that he is the owner of a jewelry store, custom created jewelry that is upstairs in our building and just happens to be in the same space that Broad Street's office used to be in. So I get this idea. What if, and I only have 2 weeks to pull this off, what if I hit him up and I say, hey, do you think I could try to sell you an ad and film it for this webinar that we're going to host in 2 weeks? So a lot had to happen. I had to get in touch with him, and Amanda did that. And then I got to talking with him, and I say, hey, this is going to sound crazy, but... So long story short, he kind of reluctantly agrees, and he allows me to film an actual ad sales process where I really try to sell him the ad. It's just an attempt. I don't have to land it. I'm just using it for educational purposes. So don't judge or critique. But I filmed it and we cut it up. And we're going to use that as the basis. I looked into it. So he's running a jewelry shop. Well, it's not a shop. He's got some stuff in his office, and he custom designs jewelry. Here's his website. So we're going to come back to this guy. But now, chat time. What are some roadblocks that are going to keep this sale from happening, or any sale from happening? Right? Now, a lot of us in local sales, we run into some of these things. So again, just drop it in the chat if you run into these. Have you ever heard?
Hey, Kenny, while they're dropping in that chat, can I just make a point there?
Yep.
Is even though you were prepping for the webinar, you had a sales mindset, which I think is really important, because a lot of people think I'm only selling from 9 to 5, right? Every conversation you should be thinking is a sales conversation, or that you're at least looking for the sales opportunity.
Oh, totally. Yeah, the more you look for the opportunity, the more they just kind of open up in front of you. Bumping into a guy like, don't hit my car. I might not take that as an ad sales opportunity. So if you have run into this, right? If you run into this, I do my marketing on social media. Just drop social into the chat. Let's see who ran into this one before. We're all good. We do our marketing on social media. Social. Yeah, do my marketing on social media. Oh, we already got an agency. Oh, I don't need advertising. We just do it on social media, right? And we actually know that doesn't work as well as it used to because they built up these audiences. They can't get in front of them, but we still hear it. I just boost my posts,
Yep.
right? Budget. How many people run into this one? Right? You didn't even come in that high on the whole price. You thought you were underpriced, and they still push back on budget. Just type budget into the chat or put a money sign, dollar bill, budget. Yeah, they say you're like, it was $200. You want it for 150? That's not in your budget. You know, a lot of us, especially as hyperlocal publishers, we undersell big time. You know, the original publisher of Red Bank Green, John Ward, 200,000 page views a month. Pretty good, right? Selling ads for about $100, $200, right? Giving it away. And the advertisers don't see the value. All right, so we run into budget. What about this one? Spooky Ghost. You crush a sales meeting. You shatter the backboard. They were smiling and nodding, your best friends. And then you send in the proposal, you don't hear back. All right, just drop ghost into the chat. If you have run into somebody that does not return your emails, does not return your calls, it's like they're ducking you, man. Go into the chat. Ghost. All of us. Larry, you ever been ghosted?
Never. You know what we call that, Kenny, right? We call that prospect protection program, right? Like they disappear off the earth. And what do? We follow up, stalk, chase, Facebook friend their kids, like do all sorts of weird things. When there's really a way to avoid that, especially the Facebook friending their kids. Yeah.
All right. So go in. I love that prospect protection program. So here's the thing. With what we're going to talk about in this webinar today, we are going to eradicate ghosts. We're going to banish them. They do happen occasionally. We're going to do everything we can to make sure that we don't got to worry about no ghosts. Completely necessary. So let's talk about ways that we screw up the sale. The other things are things that like we run the sale and they're things that we can eliminate if we take the right steps. What are some ways that we could screw it up? I will give you my top two. We ask them to think, right? Or we ask them to work in some way. Right? They reached out to us about buying and then we gave them a chore. A lot of people love the idea of like self-serve advertising. Oh, like let's just give them a form. They reach out to me, you fill out this form. Maybe for a tiny fraction of marketers, but for the small business owners who might be reaching out to you, they don't want a chore. So this is what it might look like. If we attach the media kit, if Joe Bagel asked us for the rates and we send them the rates, we say, all right, rates are attached, take a look. Look at my media kit. Joe Bagel, we saw how he actually structured that sentence. This does not look like somebody who's ready to parse a media kit and tell me how he plans to execute his marketing campaign. Just a thought. What's your budget? Oh man, have you ever had a contractor, Johnny, Larry, you guys ever been talking to a contractor and the first question they ask is like, what's your budget? And it's like, can you just tell me what like it costs to do the thing I asked you to do? Like, I don't want the price fluctuating based on what I tell you.
Right. Kills trust.
What's that? Yeah.
It kills trust early, yeah.
What's your budget? Because what do you think? If you give someone a big budget, what are they going to do? Or what's your fear?
That they're going to max it out.
Yeah, exactly. They're going to go be like, oh, yeah, my budget's 10,000. Be like, it's coming in. Yeah, I just did the numbers. It's 9999. You know, just run out my calculator. Just came out that way. So this is why it's not good. Have you ever, and I just want, you could just drop this in the chat. We could do a show of hands on video. Have you ever come into the office one day and you had a list of to-dos that you wanted to knock out, and at the end of the day, you are exhausted. You've been putting out fires all day and none of it happened. 100%. This is the life of a small business owner. In fact, it's probably the life of a lot of people on the chat. 100%. You came in and there was a big story. or your website was down, or fill in the blank. There's 1,000 variables that could all kick into the wrong direction at any given time. So they're busy, and small business owners are especially dealing with the random stuff like, oh, the manager just called out. You know, hey, we're short on staff. We got an angry Google review, right? So they don't have time to really think about digital marketing. In fact, I'm going to guess that Joe Bagel just tapped out that request for ad rates. He should have been doing something else. He had a to-do list. He was probably ignoring a to-do list. Reaching out to me was not on his to-do list. So the other thing is that a lot of times they think they know what they want, but they don't. They need someone to kind of guide them. But what I do find, so when it comes to advertising, people have money. Budget is not actually an issue, but they do not have money to waste. So if they trust you, if they believe in you, if they believe the thing that you suggest to them is going to get them to where they want to be, they will find the budget. You got to sell a lot of bagels to pay for an ad that I eventually sold to Joe Bagel. But that only comes about in a certain way, because a lot of people, some sales reps, didn't think that he had much of a budget, ended up paying something significant for an ad on Red Bank Green. So what we want to do is remove all the friction that we can. So if you're listening and you're like, hey, this is all great, but I don't get enough sales meetings going to begin with. We did put together it's kind of like your lead gen on steroids, right? Call it Daybreak. We have a lead generation tool on Red Bank Green that's running. It brings in a lead about once every week or two. Those are inbound. They make it easy. So we said, what is the best possible lead generation tool that we can put together? So if you do want to try this out, it's running on day one, the first day it's ever run on Red Bank Green. You'll see it in the story, about halfway down through the story. Just type me into the chat. We'll put you into the test group if you want to try it out. It's not ready. It just went live for me today. And I want to see if it performs better than the other one. So fantastic. All right, we got a lot of those, and I will send out more info after that. But let's get into it. So we go back to Joe Bagel. How do I hit him back? Larry, you said give him a call. That's exactly what I did. Well, I didn't give him a call. I said, hey, listen, I love Bagel Station. They're down by the train station. I used to go there all the time before I went to work. And I said, here's my phone number when you want to talk. We got to talking, came on board. But we're here to talk about this guy. Talk about Corey, the proprietor of the jewelry store right upstairs, literally right through this ceiling. So now we're going to talk about LIFT. LIFT is built, this acronym that I'm about to go over is built specifically on what Lariel taught me. Lariel, what was it that you said about where they are, where they want to be?
Yeah, a lot of people are more focused on selling my product, my campaign, pushing whatever it is that they want to sell, right? Their ad. But you really need to focus on what is their point A? Where are they at today? What are their pain points? What are their issues? What are their challenges? And then you've got to also find out what is their point B, which is where a lot of salespeople miss, right? They can be okay on identifying where they're at today, but you got to get point B. Where do they want to be 3 to 5 years from now? What does their vision of success look like? And then you bridge the gap. The ad should be, this is how I'm going to get you from point A to point B, not this is what I'm selling you, right? And so when you shift that perspective, price is no longer an issue. And I love how you said that, Kenny, that it's never about price. When someone tells you your price is too high, what they're saying is your payoff is too low. I don't see how I'm going to make my money back, right? And so you have to shift your approach so that you also shift what's happening on the back end.
Absolutely. So I want to broaden it for everybody, just a little bit. When Joe Bagel reached out, there was something on his mind that he thought I could potentially help with. He wasn't just randomly thinking of buying an ad. When I talked to Corey and I said, hey, have you ever thought about marketing on Red Bank Green? I got this crazy idea. There was still something that he thought I could potentially help him with, right? Everybody on this call today, you hopped on thinking that maybe you were going to learn something because there is a place that you want to be. There's a reason, there's a place that you hope this webinar is going to take you, is going to elevate you to a place that's a little better off than you were before you hopped on at 1 p.m. Eastern. This is it, the opportunity to take someone from where they are today, to really understand where they are, and then take them to that place. It's an amazing thing. And when you start to look for the opportunity, like the dude in the parking lot, you start to see the opportunity everywhere. I started applying this to recruiting, to Broad Street. I reach out to people and say, hey, are you happy where you at? what do you think could be better? Maybe that's something I could provide for them. So when I go into sales meetings, I don't really sweat it because I want to see, is there something I can really help with? Can I understand where they are and can I take them to that place? If you can really understand it, it's so powerful, but there's a way to do it and a way to do it incredibly effectively. I promise you that you will close more sales. You will elevate to an elite salesperson if you can do this. But first, before I go talk to Corey, I need to talk about something very real. We are going to go into a meeting, and I did the research. He's already working with Google and Facebook. Google churned out $100 billion in Q4 of 2024. They're projecting $110 billion in the next quarter, right? So fundamentally, like, we have this huge organization. I know they fund our associations. They do some good work in the industry. They fund the associations, but they're also our biggest competitor. Corey is already spending plenty of money with them. And so if I'm going to bring some of this money back to me, I got to figure out how I can do what I do better than Google and Facebook, because there's another 100 in this equation. When I took over Red Bank Green, before I took it over, I initially resisted. I had other things to do. I'm running Broad Street. I got a family. But when the publisher said I might shutter it or I might sell it, I started to think, what would Red Bank be without Red Bank Green? And I started to think of local news and the importance of local news. I started to really dive into it and say, like, why is Red Bank Green important? Red Bank Green is important because I love Red Bank. Because everyone loves Red Bank. Because the things that you pay attention to by way of something like Red Bank Green tend to get better. And the things that we ignore tend to get worse. That's why if local news disappears, it's a very bad thing. So I said, not only am I going to take over Red Bank Green for 5 years or 10 years, I'm going to make it stand for 100 years, like the Red Bank Register that came before it. But in order to do that, I need to overcome the Google, the Facebook. They won't be the only ones. They will not be the only villains on my journey to 100 years. There will be more by different names. But I got to overcome them right now because I'm going into the meeting with Corey knowing that he's working with them, he's not working with me. So how's it going to go? Start to feel a little bit like this. I'm going in against all that weaponry, all those objections. He advertises on social media. He's got the search ads. He works with the agency. But before I go in, I'm going to do some research, like you guys said. So very quickly, I'm going to do some research. I didn't take any notes. I just kind of keep it in my head. Lara, you do some research prior to a meeting too, right?
Yeah. We do a pre-call plan, right? So we do some type of appointment roadmap where we're looking for specific information that's going to help us in prepping for the call. And you already know, Kenny, I'm a big believer that the work that you have to put in on the back end trying to close the deal is 100% correlated to the work you should have put in on the front end, right? And so if you do better research up front, not that we lead with that information, but leveraging that information to build rapport and leveraging that information to ask better questions once you actually get to the meeting.
Absolutely. I love that. The work that you put in.
Head into the sales meeting. It's easy to get nervous before a sales meeting. I've got nothing to worry about because I don't even know if I can help him yet. Just going to go see where he might need help and if I can do it. And if I can do it, then I got a duty to try.
So that's the way I go in. I don't even know. I don't have to sweat it. I don't have to get nervous before a sales meeting because I don't even know if I can help yet. I don't have to be a doctor worrying about what prescription I'm going to write, because I got to make the diagnosis first. Does he need my help? So to answer one of the questions in the chat, what is Lift? Is what we're about to get into. Lift is your weapon to making sure that the marketing budget is going toward you. It is your weapon to make sure that you run that sales meeting in a way that is genuine and you connect and you come up with a solution that's actually going to work. So let's just step through it. First step. This is so important because when we're nervous, it can kind of go awry. We listen. The reason we want to hit Joe Bagel back and talk to him, or the reason we want to set up a meeting with Corey, is that we want to get them talking. And there's so many benefits that come out of talking. You're going to find common ground, you're going to find gems, but we want to get them talking because we're going to discover things that we wouldn't have discovered otherwise. it also puts us in a place where we're listening to them. We don't have to be nervous. So this is what it looked like when I asked Corey, or when I set the meeting with Corey, we got started.
Thank you for taking the time to do all this. What I always like to do is like kind of understand a little more about the business, your background, like how you got into this.
So I guess I've been in the business now for 15 years. I took over from my dad who started the business.
All right, so we went ahead and got it started. Now let's get into some tactics. I like to start a meeting with, especially if they reached out to me, so tell me what's up. Just get it going. There was a thing on their mind. Like, they reached out to me. Even if I reached out to them, and I learned this from Lariel, you said if I reach out to them and they take the meeting, that there's something on their mind. There's a reason they took it, right?
Yeah.
So we just open that thing up. When I reached out, what made you want to take the meeting with me today? How'd you get started? What's something that you do really well that other people don't know about? Right? Because every business owner has got some of those. What does your average customer look like? It's important to remember, right? And this is, again, Lara, what was the thing you told me? You got the business problem, but then you got the personal problem.
Mm-hmm. You've got those 3 levels. I call it pie, right? So the first thing when you're doing what Kenny's talking about is listening, which the only way that you can listen is by asking questions. The P stands for problem. Like, you need to try to identify what is the problem that they're having. And that's the thing that they're typically okay sharing, right? Like, that conversation flows. But that's where most salespeople stop. And if you stop and you try to solve that problem, you become a commodity. So the second level is I, which is how does it impact the business? Right? How's it impacting the organization? And then that E for pie stands for emotion. How's it impacting that individually, personally? And if you can get to I, if you can get to E, people will pay whatever it costs, right? To eliminate that or to fill it. So it's problem, impact, emotion.
That emotion piece, this is the thing. If you get to a place where you really understand what it is that they want, and a good way of doing this, right? You can understand, I was talking to a landscaper and he told me about like how, he wanted to get more business. I said, how much business? Why do you want the business? Turns out he's trying to elevate himself out of the business because he's got a bad back. He's a landscaper for 30 something years. I was talking to somebody who owns a local shop, and I had I guess at the time, that momentary wisdom to ask the question, wait a second, in 3 years, if everything goes exactly the way that you hoped it went, where would your business be? And she just kind of looked off and said, I want to be number 1 in Red Bank. And that's it. That's what I'm working to make. That's what I'm working toward. That's what I'm trying to make happen, because we're getting to someone's dreams, the thing where they spend time on it. It's a problem they have to solve, or it's a place they want to be. If you can get to that place, that is it. But a lot of us, when we're in a sales meeting, we don't do that. We might solve the business problem. They might say, hey, I need more customers. That's one thing. Why do you need more customers? How many more customers do you need? Especially for the ones where there's something fixed like that. They got a certain number of clients. You have professionals. You have Corey upstairs. I want to know how much it costs, or like what the likelihood is that I'm going to help him make his money back and then some. How many customers do I need to help bring you? And get to that personal problem. That becomes the thing that is going to elevate your close rate to like 90% plus, regardless of the product that you're selling. Some Lariel wisdom right here. Have you ever go into a sales meeting and someone's like, a little rough in the beginning, and they say, hey, listen, I don't want to waste your time. We're already doing our marketing, I don't know if we could even work with you, if it even makes sense. Lariel, you ever get something like that in what you do?
Never, but I think you're going to lean into questions are really good in overcoming that, and also overcoming objections, overcoming hesitation, overcoming and keeping yourself from not getting emotionally involved. So I know that you're going to run through some examples of what this sounds like for you and how you've used this. Yeah.
So in the beginning of that meeting, I want to stay entirely question-based. I want to just keep asking questions. I call it Q-jitsu, right? I don't know anything about jujitsu other than you take their energy and you throw them on the ground, right? That's not really the exact analogy I'm working on right now. But so basically, when someone asks you a hard question, how can you ask a question in response? People are like, I don't even know, like, if it makes sense. I don't know. I don't want to waste your time. I'm like, oh, no worries. What are you guys doing right now? Turn around. right? And they say, oh, we're doing Google Face, we're doing the marketing stuff, you know, all that. Oh, so like Google search ads, are you doing that? Social media, just keep asking questions. Is it working? A lot of times, and this is like, this is an actual from an actual conversation. Oh yeah. My agency says, you know, we got great impressions and clicks and stuff like that. I said, no. Is it actually turning into customers? And then we had, I don't know. You just use that Socratic method. If you keep asking, you get to that point where they're like, oh, you know what? I don't really know. I'm not so sure the thing I thought I was sure of. So when you listen, you are going to uncover some real gems. You're going to uncover some common ground. You're going to uncover the areas where you can help. I cut this down. This next part was 20 minutes of conversation. I just let the guy go. Corey, I loved listening to him, but at the same time, I cut it down to about 1 minute for you.
I was a taxi cab driver in New York City. It was a tough time back in the 80s in the city. You know, an 8-year-old boy sitting in the front of a yellow taxi cab without a seatbelt and people smoking Marlboro Red. His way of marketing was a little bit different than mine. He offered people the chance to win $1 million if they came in, and he gave them a lotto ticket. When I came into the business, getting myself on the maps with Google Maps, starting a Facebook account. And from that moment on, I realized something. I realized there's no quick way their jeweler, right? Like the trust, right? Prayed on it. And then miraculously, so I got involved with the American Cancer Society, connecting with people in a genuine way, because there's joy when you help others, you know, there's joy when you serve others, you know, and give someone a gift. You get more joy of seeing someone else happy by giving them something rather than getting. It exploded our business. Right. I love creating engagement rings, creating moments for couples. There's joy from it. There's the giving aspect, right? Yeah.
Is that crazy that he has the same philosophy, the way he looks at his business in giving and taking people to where it want to go? That's exactly what I'm in there to do for him. It is not a coincidence. So my favorite questions, again, getting a little tactical, questions that you should not leave an ad sales meeting without. What are some things that people are surprised to learn the first time they work with you? There are preconceptions that people have that prevent them from patronizing the business that you're working with. Right? So I was speaking to the owner of a brewery. He said people don't know that we serve food, right? Some people have this kind of antiquated idea that a brewery only serves beer. So that was preventing some people to come in. I was talking to a dude who runs a lobster roll place. He said, well, a lot of people don't know we have a kids menu. And so people don't come. Mom and dad, they want lobster rolls. The kids aren't going to eat them, so they don't come here. So the highest performing ad that we ever put on Red Bank Green was just a picture of their menu that said click to enlarge. I got like a 3% click-through rate. If you uncover the preconception, they agree, yeah, this is a big problem. Then you lean into that when you're imagining the thing that we're going to do for them. Realize how powerful that is. This is the thing that we're going to try and fix for you. We're gonna resolve that so nobody thinks that anymore. So I asked Corey what it looked like when what surprised people who were patrons of his.
The surprising factor is when I give them the price. Yeah, that's the thing. Back in April, I started marketing more about budget. Come in, name your budget. We'll design your ring based on that, and you'll be very, very happy.
That was it. People think custom design jewelry is incredibly expensive. Next question that you must ask. What are the questions that you get asked a lot? You're at a backyard barbecue. You say, hey, I'm Corey. I do custom design jewelry. What's the first thing that comes to their mind? There's a great book called They Ask, You Answer. There, in any industry, there's all kinds of questions on people's mind. And if you can be the one who answers that question, you can become the expert. Right? Would that not be, if we found something that Corey gets asked a lot, would that not be the great basis of a sponsored content campaign? This is what it looked like when I asked
all the time. Yeah. What's up with these lab-grown diamonds?
What's up with these lab-grown diamonds? People are always asking them that. I could make a whole sponsored content article explaining about lab-grown diamonds, or at least something around that. But my number 3, the thing I will not leave a sales meeting without. If you worked with me and everything went exactly as you hoped it would, what does that look like? Spell out success. And this is where we dive deep into what is it on a more tactical level we can do for them. And for Corey, it was a little broader. Sometimes it's like, I need 20 customers because you find out that why, as someone mentioned in the chat.
It's exposure, it's brand awareness, it's the message.
That was it. He wants to tell the community who he is. He knows he can't just break into the community. He wants to tell them who he is and tell that that message of giving, that message of trust. So now while we're listening to Corey, 1 second, I got a little bit of buzz in my speakers. All right, now we're gonna imagine what we can do for Corey. So while you're listening to them, they're going on, I want you to imagine, what's something that you can do for them that can get attention, or show off what they do, or resolve those false assumptions or preconceptions, make them look like an expert. So again, Joe Bagel, he said, nobody knows we do lunch specials. Nobody knows we even serve lunch, right? They think it's all bagels. But he said, we do great salads and wraps. I said, why don't we get pictures of those salads and wraps in front of everybody? We'll stop people in their tracks. So when I think about products, I think about making them easy to understand, something that can tell a story, something that can create connection, that they're easily created, easily updated, high impact. I want the things in my media kit to cover some group of these. This is the way I think of it. These are all the most important things, the 7 most important things about our products. When you think about your products, what I like to do is make sure they're simple, unique, and specific. Because if they're simple and unique, but they're not specific to their problem, they're probably going to object or have a reason that it's not going to work. They'll find the reason that it won't work. If it's simple and specific to their problem, meaning simple, it's easier to understand, and I can see how that would work, but it's not unique. Other people are doing it. Google's doing it. Facebook is doing it. They're going to object on price. But if it's unique and specific, it's not simple, then they're going to be deer in headlights. They're going to ghost. So you want to make sure you hit all 3: simple, unique, and specific. So these are some items that I have in my media kit at Red Bank Green, and they are Broad Street items, but we've had customers like kind of mimic these outside of Broad Street, or people mimic these outside of Broad Street. Local authority, those local professionals, I just ask them, what are the 3 questions you get the most? I ask the real estate agent, and he says, hey, what's happening with Red Bank Real Estate? How can I get into Red Bank Real Estate? What's my home worth? Classic. Right? So this has been such an easy sell, and one of my favorites, the Amazing Cube, put Broad Street on the map, little crazy. We don't really demo it anymore. Do we, Tommy? Do we demo this thing still? Yes, you need nods. Some people, it is the best-selling ad format of all time. It's basically an image gallery, but it's a spinning cube. And you can imagine that Joe Bagel, for example, would probably lose his mind over this. Social media spotlight. Oh, you do your marketing on social media? Well, what if we go back and we find your best performing Instagram post that already resonated, and we put that in front of everybody? Let's just go find the content that already worked, and we'll showcase that and give it a much bigger audience. I think it was actually the Red Bank Antique Shop where that came up. It came up in conversation. We put it together for them. So use any post, grow their following. So these are things that are simple, unique, and specific. But when I'm talking to Corey, I'm actually thinking sponsored content at this point. So I'm thinking about floating an idea by him. So this is the F of the lift. If you were to decide to work with me, what do you think about, and this is where I'm trying to float some ideas by to see what might be interesting. Telling a story about how getting some pictures of fill in the blank front and center, or for those advertisers who have if you look at their YouTube channel, they already have a ton of YouTube videos. How about we take those videos you're already producing and we get that in front of our audience? So float some ideas by. So when I was talking to Corey, I just run the whole storytelling thing by him.
In terms of, if you were to work with Red Bank Green, do you like the idea of doing a campaign kind of bringing you out and doing the storytelling and leaning into some of those differentiators, like the one-on-one, the extension of you, the reasonable pricing, but also kind of really laying into that trust piece?
Yeah.
So we liked it. I cut that down too. There was a few-minute conversation. So once I kind of find that thing that he's really digging, then I'm going to start to wrap up the meeting. It's the last piece of the meeting, right? Lara, what's your process for...
Kenny?
Yeah.
I was actually going to chime in as one thing I hope that people caught is that it is easy to sell if you're actually listening. The guy mentioned, Corey already mentioned, it's about trust. It's about this, it's about that. And then you just sold him how you were going to do exactly what he told you that he actually wanted, right? And so you really took his problem and what he was trying to accomplish and said, okay, how can I fit that into the product suite that we have? Versus most people are trying to take the prospect and say, or product and say, how can I force my product on you, right? And so I think you're about to ask to Transact. I just wanted to make sure people caught that piece. Like it's easy to sell when you give them back what they said. He mentioned trust, and your whole floating was, how about we do all of this A, B, and C to tell the story of trust, right? So it's easy for him to say yes, because you just told me what it is that you were trying to do.
Is that not a gem right there? It is easy to sell when you give them back what they said. That is it. That's a new one. I'm going to be quoting that for the next 5 years. Easy to sell when you give them back what they said.
I get to the end of a call and someone's like, that's exactly what I want. I'm like, I know, you just told me what you want. And I just said, yes, we can do that. And here's how we can do it. Sales is so simple.
So the way I like to wrap up, right, is like, this is your chance to talk about you. This is where I lean into the vision and the mission, and like why I'm so passionate about what we do. I know we got a ton of very passionate people on this call today. I give the timeline. This is the way I suggest that we work. And when it comes to pricing, I usually give them two options. I give them the more expensive option where I can really crush it for them. There's also the less expensive option, right? I actually didn't do that for Corey. I just went for the price that I knew I could hit it out of the park for him. So what I like to do is illuminate the path forward. This is what it looks like if we're to work together. First, we have a meeting like this. If everything sounds good, I'll send over a mock-up. I'm a huge fan of spec ads, putting together an example of what it would look like as if Corey was going to work with me. Now, Corey actually 3D prints rings. When he designs them, he 3D prints them so people get a sense of what it's like without actually having bought the ring yet. And he does that all for free, right? That is actually so in line with Broadsheet's approach to selling. And if you're liking it, I'm going to send a really simple sales agreement. It's one page, really easy. Send you the payment link. And then, and importantly, is this something that you could see working out for you? Do you like the idea of this? Just kind of getting that verbal commit. I don't always do it. Sometimes I get lazy. And even though I always had that LIFT in my head, me and Lara were talking before this, like sometimes where sales go wrong a lot of time is when we're most confident and we hit it off. And then we kind of lose our discipline. Yeah. So that's how I wrap it up. This is what it looked like for Corey.
A lot of people think of it as like a neighborhood blog. We have like 40,000 readers.
Wow.
The original publisher, John Ward, had built such a gem. I'm going to figure out how to make this thing stand for 100 years. Yeah. But if you're going to build something that lasts, it has to be built on something that's authentic. Yeah. But if anyone's going to market with Red Bank Green, I'm going to do it differently. You could really do anywhere. Yeah. You know, the reason that people will work with me, I've been in digital marketing for like 13 years. Second thing is the products that I use. Like, I don't just do standard banner ads. Video, I integrate storytelling, bringing the person of the business out. You're going to connect. People connect. I think there are people out there who just knowing you exist would probably book an appointment. Yeah. The third big thing is reporting. Is if it sounds like something you want to explore, service proposal, $600 a month for 3 months.
The content's fun. The stories do sell.
Yeah. So if it sounds good, I'll send over a proposal.
Yeah, please do that.
You were talking about the meaning and like the way stuff just happens. After I was doing that kickflip in the parking lot, I'm like, dude, I feel like I should talk to Corey. Like,
I thought the same, honestly.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, appreciate you too.
That's it. All right, Lariel, how am I going to bring this home? What would you do after a meeting like this?
Get the contract.
Yeah. How quickly?
And the money. ASAP. And one thing I just want to say is when we first started working together, Kenny, I don't know if you remember this, you did not actually close on your calls. Like you would have the call and then send over the proposal and like do all of this and then have a secondary call. And I was like, why are you doing that? Just like close it. Right. And so it's super exciting for me to kind of see like you gave them the price there. If there's going to be an objection to price, let me handle it while I'm in front of the person versus once I'm in email jail.
Right. It can feel more comfortable to not talk about price and then put together and then craft the number and then wait till you find the right number and then you send it over, but then you delay and procrastinate and you never send in the proposal until like 2 weeks later, but then you feel stupid. You don't send. There's all kinds of ways that can go wrong. If you can just say the price and look someone right in the eye. Denise Civiletti from Riverhead in Long Island, I remember she used to say, just say the price and shut up.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
All right. So bringing it home. This is how I brought it home. I hit him up. A lot of people operate via text message. I was like, Corey, I really enjoyed hanging out. 3 things. My media kit, which my media kit is tight. We did a great webinar with Eric Schenfeld last year, right? And we also have a media kit template at the end of this that you can use. You want your media kit to look bomb because even when you're not on your A game for a sales meeting, your media kit can always be on its A game, is what we call repeatable. Secondly, I am going to send him a spec ad. So I sent him a spec. It's not the final thing, right? It's just an example. I kind of work like you work. This is what it's going to look like kind of if you work on Red Bank or if you work with Red Bank Green. Third, here's the proposal and agreement. I keep it so simple. And he gives me the verbal commit. Says I'm in, which is nice, but like Larry said, until we get paid, it's not really final. So I sent him the agreement. I gotta, at the end of this, if you need a sales agreement, a simple sales agreement, it's not legalese. It just gets everyone on the same page. I find that works just fine. I've had lawyers sign this. And then what do we get? Remember, I said this happened a week ago, this actual sales meeting. So no promises on the close. But we did get a contract signed. We did get it signed, right? But does it count yet? No, it doesn't count yet. One of the things that I usually insist on is that we got to do upfront, especially for a campaign like 3 months. You got to do upfront payment. And Corey came through, got that 3-month contract. So this is sponsored content, some display to follow it up. We did about $600 a month, and it came out to about $1,800. Get him, Mario. You know, I work in that 8-bit font. Just for you guys, not for everybody. So here's the recap. I saw some people saying, what was the L? What was the I? Listen, spend most of your effort here. Listen, imagine, right? Imagine what you can do for them. Float an idea by them. And then at the very end, then you talk about you. Do all that listening. Just from listening, you're already going to build a good rapport. So, as they say, it's not what's taught, it's what's caught. If you took something away from this, just drop it in the chat. What is something that you heard, you saw on the slides, you heard me say, you heard Larry say, something that kind of, and by the way, I have a QR code in the slide after this, or after the Q&A. Email jail. Listen and questions. Our T needs tightening. It's nice when you can really, when it is super tight and you say, all right, awesome. Well, thank you. It's been great talking to you. This is how it would work if you, I like to keep it non-committal until I kind of get that verbal commit. Top 3 questions are good. That is actually one of my favorites too, because you're going to get something good out of that. If you get like, hey, and by the way, in that follow-up, when you send that follow-up, I like to lead with that. I led to that one shopper. She said, I want to be number 1 in Red Bank. I said, hey, Karen, thank you for taking the meeting with me. I'm going to make you number 1 in Red Bank. I'm going to work on that. I'm going to be part of the group that takes you there. When I find that thing, that preconception, what's keeping, let's make sure that nobody thinks that Casal is too expensive to work with. Right? So what else we got? All right, top 3 questions. No email jail. All right.
I know that we have like 10 minutes for that Q&A. Do you want to get them to start dropping some questions in there?
Yeah. So actually, yeah, go ahead and drop your questions. We're going to do, let's allocate more like, we'll do a 5-minute Q&A. And what we'll do is I'll hang on a little bit. Larry, do you have a hard stop?
I can hang on.
All right. We'll hang on for about 5 minutes after, because I want to wrap up before the hour, just so everybody gets the QR code at the end. So what are some questions? Can we get a blank copy of the agreement? Of course you can. I already thought 2 steps ahead of you. So I'm going to do that at the end. We got our free stuff slide. All right. So Larry, sorry, I'm about to, you already ghosted somebody. Now what? Or like somebody's already ghosting you. Now what?
Well, that typically doesn't happen, right? So there's 2 things that you kind of want to think about when ghosting is. You need to think about when that happens, right? So sometimes ghosting happens at the beginning. So maybe, you know, Johnny and I talked, he said, yes, I'm interested in booking a meeting, and then he doesn't show, right? That's one issue. It's a different issue if now I have had a conversation with Johnny, sent over my proposal, and then now he's ghosted me, right? So those are 2 different issues. One, on the first one, you probably did not build enough value into the meeting. So if you're prospecting and you're asking for a 30-minute meeting or a 60-minute meeting, you need to have built enough value in that initial conversation to justify or pique someone's interest to give you 30 or 60 minutes, however long you're asking for. If I meet with Johnny and we have a conversation, I give him my proposal and then he ghosts me, that's an indication that you probably did not do a good job of really like qualifying, right? And really asking those questions and finding out that personal, problem, impact, and emotion, right? And so they don't really see how this is going to help them, or you did not do a good job setting a clear next step. So at the end of every sales conversation, you and the prospect need to know exactly what's going to be happening next. And there's one other quick tip I'll slide in because I know we're short in time, is you can also avoid ghosting by letting people know up front at the beginning of your meetings that no is okay. Like if it's not a fit, I'm okay with you letting me know that, Johnny. What I don't want to do is we have a great conversation. You don't think it's a fit, but you don't want to hurt my feelings. And now you're avoiding me at the Chamber of Commerce. Like we don't want that to have happen, right? So if it's not a fit, I'm okay letting you, I'm okay with you telling me that. So if you do those three things, ghosting shouldn't happen.
All right. So Richard asks, what did I do to decide on the $600 a month price? Well, because budget is immaterial if I find the right pain point, I know that basically I need to charge what I need to keep Red Bank Green running. That's it. That's all there is to it. I keep this business running or I don't. So the way I mapped it out, there's a webinar that we did a year ago. We're going to do it again this year, I think, called Pricing and Packaging. So it's the 7 steps to pricing and packaging. And part of that is figuring out what do I need and then working backward to what your packages have to cost, regardless of what's in them. So I came out to about $600. That's what I needed. That makes sense for me. That's what makes the whole thing work. There was a good question, Lara. We talked about this a little bit. When you're reaching out to someone cold by email, like how do you approach that?
Yeah. Well, in today's world, I think everything can be warmed up. So I try to find some point of connection. And then the other point is leaning in on, I do the top 3. So what are the top 3 points that are most likely to land with that particular prospect? So I would put that in the email. And then I always end with a question that's easy for them to answer at the end of my email.
Perfect. All right. So we got some questions. Some are Broad Street specific. Thank you for dropping that link to the pricing and packaging webinar, Tommy. That's the direct link. So, and that one, it's very detailed. Hopefully it's clear that I put a lot of effort into making sure these are as useful and actionable as possible. What I'll do is I'll hang on for a bit afterward, but I want to make sure that we get to the next slide for everybody. So if you want Daybreak, if you want the sell sheet that I use for Red Bank Green, my sell sheet template, it's a 1-pager. You want a media kit template. You want to see the video that I recorded, that research phase, that's a 10-minute video where I go over exactly what I look at on an advertiser's website. You want my sales agreement that I use. I've had people wholesale Broad Street's or Red Bank Green's media kit and our sales agreement. Fantastic. I love that. We call it R&Ding. Rob and duplicate. Rob and duplicate all that you want. The full sales meeting recording, I boiled that thing down. I promised you it was going to be in 30 minutes. That was actually more like 45 minutes in the end. But I have the full unedited sales meeting and a Dropbox link. And then the post-meeting recap, what I'm thinking. So before we wrap up, I want to thank everybody. I want to thank especially Johnny and Lariel for putting this together with me. We rehearsed a bunch of times and I had them coming on. It wasn't like today was the first time we hopped on. We're like, hey, hope this thing works. We did some rehearsals ahead of time. I want to thank Tommy, who basically sat through like 5 or 6 rehearsals with me, working out all the kinks, making sure this is as good as it could possibly be, because this is going to form the foundation of some stuff we do this year. Amanda for helping me rig up some stuff around the office, do sound checks. Katie for putting up with me too. Marge for making it look super tight. I do want to ask everybody one favor. This is really important. Oh, and Brian for filming it. Like Brian recorded it. Brian for filming it. But I do want to ask everyone a favor. This is really important. This is important to me. I know you're thinking this is where he comes in with the pitch. No. I want you to take what you learned today and I want to take it to your next sales meeting. And I want you to see the magic that plays out when you put their needs before yours. When you're not going in thinking, I got to sell this ad. You go in thinking, how can I help them get to where they want to be? How can I lift them and elevate them? And then when it works for you, because it will work for you, as long as you stay to that system, what I want you to do is I want you to teach it to someone else and lift them and teach them to lift others. It will be a wonderful thing. And only then, as a pleasant side effect of all of that working, you can reach out to me. I really appreciate it when people, after a webinar, hit me up by email, kenny@broadstreetads.com, and say, I really enjoyed that. It changed the way I thought about sales. So I hope that everyone, with that, I hope you all get your organizations growing. and not just sustaining into the future. I want you to prosper to 100 years. I want you all to be able to build organizations that last. Long live, you've heard me say long live local news online. Long live city and regional magazines. Long live radio broadcasters. Long live you B2B publishers out there. My name is Kenny Cascrow. Long live local news. There was about a 20% chance of that happening. But now let's open it up to Q&A. Let's get the real Q&A.
Can I hop in on a couple of questions?
Yeah, go for it.
So if someone reaches out only about pricing information, how would you start that conversation? Michael, depends on if it is email or a phone, right? If it's phone, then I would have a conversation, say, well, we're able to build something custom to what it is that you're looking for. Can you share a little bit more information about your business? Quite frankly, if it was via email, I would likely do the same thing as well. And anytime there's some hesitation because we would think, oh, they just want me to send me my media kit. But you can address why you don't do that even, right? So, hey, Michael, we don't typically send out just a standard media kit because we like to do things custom based on what your organization's goals are. Can you tell me a little bit about what it is that you're trying to do, right? Or can you tell me when you have 15 minutes to talk, in more depth if it's via email? So that's how I would handle that. There was one question. I don't know if you want to tap into this, Kenny. At what point would you let a prospect go? Do you have I have my own answer to that, but
personally, mine is you're never going, really. I mean, after like the 5 touches, you have like Larry can speak more to the breakup email. But in my head, I never really let him go. If I didn't hear back, I didn't hear a no, even a no is maybe an eventual yes. It's not right now. Because it will happen where people circle back and they want to work with you. It happens. Yeah. I've reached out to people in the early days of Broad Street. I had this mentality like, hey, I'm going to email this person once a week until I hear back. And then I'd meet them at a conference and be like, oh, I've been getting your emails, dude. I couldn't wait to talk. Sorry, I've been so busy. So like the opportunity is always there. Sales is such a mindset thing, but I never really let them go. What about you, Lara?
My thought process on that is, again, it depends on in the process. If we're saying getting any feedback or hearing anything, then they're still in your marketing funnel, right? They're not in your sales funnel. It's different if you've met with someone, you've given them a proposal and now they've ghosted you and you're trying to figure out how long should you be following up. I've got like 3 to 5 touches and then we send what we call a close the file email, which is basically the breakup email. And the purpose of that is there's some people who will be okay with all the follow-up. There's other people that then will avoid you when they see you. Yep. Because now it's created this tension. And I rather us leave on good terms, knowing that I can always circle back around and the timing might just be off. And that relationship needs to be nurtured. So for me, it's 3 to 5 touch points. And then I send what we call the close the file email.
Yeah, one thing that Larry, you said a little while back that resonated when you send that close the file email, a lot of times you're leading with, if you did find that personal problem, just say like, hey, listen, I remember you saying that you want to be number 1 on Red Bank. Like, if that's not something you think I could help with, or like it's not a priority right now, what I'm going to do is close the file on this, or whatever your way of putting that is. But it helps remind them, it re-elevates that thing that was important to them. Because sometimes people get, they leave that sales meeting and they get lost in the shuffle of all the stuff going on. So just helping remind them. Because when you can put that thing that hits on that emotion, this is another Larialism that like, emotion is how people make decisions. Even though we think that we make decisions intellectually, we tend to make them emotionally and then justify them intellectually. We rationalize them in retrospect. Did I put that right?
Yeah. We buy emotionally and then we rationalize it intellectually. And I put my email in the chat just in case if you want a copy of that, the close the file email, just shoot me an email and then I'll send you over the document that, and it gives you like 6 different options depending on where you are in the process and how direct or soft you want to be with the breakup email. But the other thing, there's a lot of questions of like, what do you do when they ghost you? I'm a big believer in that if you want better answers, you ask better questions. So I would change that question to, what do I need to do to keep people from ghosting me? And where are they ghosting me in the process? And then use that to identify what is it that you need to change about your process so that people aren't ghosting you.
John asked a good question. I'm a new media property launched a few years ago. I don't get a ton of inquiries. How do I break the ice with potential advertisers that don't know you? Right. So there are a lot of different ways to do this. One is that you could start with the inbound, just create the possibility that you have some lead gen on your site and they'll come to you. You make sure some people just have the advertised page or the link. But in terms of reaching out cold, really just hitting on those things that you can borrow them from my media kit. There are 3 things that, and I'll lay them out, basically getting seen or liked on social media. Everybody has that problem. So reach out, be like, hey, listen, my name is John. I've seen you around. You know, I see that you guys are marketing here, here, and here, but do you notice that sometimes when you post on Facebook or Instagram, it's like it doesn't really get in front of the full audience that you hoped it would. And chances are that's a pain point. Or do you ever feel like, you know, you need some help marketing the business, you don't have time to do it, and you could use someone to help you with that. So that's the way I would go about it, and you could kind of pick that approach to suit your strengths. But you just hit on those things that you know that those 3 pain points are pretty universal, but you hit on those things to kind of get that conversation started. You could also kind of work your personal network, ask friends, anybody who's worked with you. If you had any advertisers, ask anybody that if they could introduce you to some people. So kind of working that personal network is powerful too. All right. Do I put pricing on my website? I don't. This is like a dividing line. Like, do you put pricing on your media kit? Do you put it on your website? The world is split here. And if we polled the audience in chat, it would be 50-50. I personally don't. What I do is I imply the pricing. So in my media kit, I have a table of how many slots I have for advertisers and how much they should generally pay to be there. So it's kind of implied when you look at this particular slide. Some people like it. They think there's a lot of there's transparency in it. If you put your pricing in there, there's the risk that it's a double-edged sword. There's the risk that some people are going to look at the pricing, draw their own conclusions about whether it's worth it without even talking to you, and then bail. But if you put on your pricing and then they talk to you, then that kind of, they're kind of qualified already. So you can kind of, there's benefits and drawbacks either way.
Maybe want to do 3 more minutes of questions, Kenny?
What's that? A few more minutes? Wrap it up at 12:10?
Yeah.
All right. Who wants to pick a question?
And I would suggest you all think about, what's your biggest challenge to hit your numbers for 2025? And maybe there's a question around that while you have us on.
What was that question?
Like, if we think about what's the biggest challenge that they're going to have to hit their numbers for 2025, is there a question around that? How do I XYZ? To help them kind of think about a particular question.
Mm-hmm. There's a quick question I want to jump in here. How do you schedule your day? There are some people on this call that are probably wearing multiple hats. So when you have to do sales, and especially if reporting and editorial stuff, as that's your strength, in growing your business, your strength is going to become your greatest weakness. As a software developer, when I built Broad Street, eventually I had to learn to sell. But what do you think I like to do? Write code. So that becomes the comfort zone that I gravitate to. So as journalists, every time there's the opportunity to write a story or, basically cover something new, that is going to pull you back into that. And the thing that you should be doing, which is growing the business and selling, you're not going to want to do. So Debbie Gallant of BaristaNet, one of the most famous hyperlocal news outlets, is the one that the wonderful and amazing Annette Batson sold for. She had Money Mondays. On Monday, this is the day you focus on money. And just because that thing blew up across the street, it doesn't mean we're going to deviate from that. We're going to focus. And so you can allocate an entire day. Some people do 2 days. Some people do the first half of the day. Money Mondays. All right, Lara, did you find any questions that you liked?
Sorry, they just ran up. One was about the Pass the Gatekeeper. Sorry, I keep scrolling up. how do you get past the gatekeeper so that you can actually speak to the decision maker? We have sales reps who go door to door, and sometimes we get nowhere. Any thoughts on that, Kenny?
Get past the gatekeeper? I didn't hear the second half of that question.
They have reps that go door to door and they have a hard time getting to the right person.
Yeah. The way I always approach it is I would go from top down. Like, I know, like, sometimes as a rep, it feels like, you're overstepping. I always go right for the top. And what I'll do is I would send an email to the person running the place, or when I was selling Broad Street to publishers, I'd send a note to the publisher and say, like, hey, listen, if this is something that you think somebody on the team would better handle, just feel free to forward it along to them, right? And then I'd give them like a little pitch about what I do. So I'd go for the top and say, if there's something on your team that would be interested or should explore this, just pass it along. And the benefit of that is that the publisher would give it a look over and they would forward it along. And then if somebody, the ad sales director, saw it and it came from the publisher, they would read it. And so I always liked the top-down approach. Working my way up was never really my jam.
Same. The only thing that I would add to that is like meet that person where they are. So they may not be at the shop or on site, like email might be better for them. The other thing to consider is that sometimes I would stop thinking about them as gatekeepers. I think when we think about how do I get around the gatekeeper, we're not thinking about how do I leverage this person. So sometimes the quote unquote gatekeepers are actually can provide you the most insight, right? And so instead of like, how do I get around this person? I would think about how can I leverage them? What do they know that then once I actually get in front of this person, I can leverage that information to have a much more tailored conversation. And then even ask like, what's the best way to reach them? And sometimes that's cell phone, text, email, whatever, right? But instead of thinking how to get around, how do I leverage?
All right, that's actually a great point. Just that mindset going in, because if we look at gatekeepers, we're almost like on the offensive, right? But I think if you really just want to help, you want to find out if you can help, they don't really become gatekeepers anymore. They're just people kind of, part of that organization. You could ask them questions too. Practice some Q-jitsu, Yep. So, all right, with that, if you have additional questions, you want to reach out to myself, Kenny at broadshadeads.com. Afterward, Larry, we'll figure out a way to manage it. If you want to drop your contact info for anybody, we want to send that out in an email afterward. Totally up to you. Thank you everyone for hopping on. If you do have questions, give me a shout. I hope this is beneficial. Again, go teach somebody, give it a shot, and then teach somebody. And you will see how much easier these conversations go and how things just start to turn around and start flowing your way. So thank you everyone for hopping on. I hope you really enjoyed it. This has been How to Sell Digital Advertising in 2025.